Hi, welcome to Arthur's online autism presentation. I am Arthur Riley and I'm on the autism spectrum. Today, my topic will be autism awareness versus public awareness. First, I encourage autism awareness to the general public, especially typical signs of autism, such as little or no speech, limited or no eye contact, fascination with spinning objects, immediate and delayed echolalia. Some have sensory overload or several. Or some would do this. They hear loud noises or cover their eyes like this. Some do not like to be touched. There's been many events, such as sporting events hosting Autism Awareness Night and fundraisers. I participated in some autism discussion panels, perspectives. Several police departments throughout the U.S. have had autism awareness training. And I've seen it on media, especially on social media such as Facebook, advertising autism awareness. I've seen it on billboards, radio, every once in a while TV, but once again, mostly on internet and social media. In fact, I have some items with puzzle pieces. The lanyard of the badge I work with, and also a handkerchief with puzzle pieces that I got at a function several months ago. So once again, I encourage autism awareness to the general public. However, I will discuss how my mom teaching me public awareness is one of the keys to where I am today. So I will cite many examples how my mother helped me correct behaviors which drew unwanted attention. My first prime example is lessons I learned when I was in bowling leagues. My mother enrolled me in a league when I was 10 years old due to the fact that I had a love of bowling. And I would say overall it was a positive experience. I was a good bowler, plus I had opportunities to interact with other kids my own age, which I really needed. However, I had serious anger issues, especially if I missed a shot or did not bowl as well as I wanted to. I stomped my foot with anger, everything I had. I went, showed in my face, plus other angry gestures which I displayed. And I'm sure they were all very noticeable by people watching me. So with my mother, instead of her saying, "Oh, he has autism, he can't help it," her approach to me was saying, "This is not acceptable. No questions asked." So it took a lot of hard work and persistence. So over the years, I was making gradual progress. However, several years later, I still had some issues with anger. In fact, when I was 17 years old, I joined a summer junior adult league with my father. Even my mom was thrilled, even though my folks were divorced at the time. She thought it was wonderful that I got to spend quality time with my dad. However, once again, I still had some anger issues. In fact, after our first week, on our way home, remember my father was saying how noticeable I was. So, despite the fact that my parents were divorced, they worked together to try to help me with this issue. So, they did not want to embarrass me in public. They tried to figure out a secret code to help me with my anger issue. I remembered I always hated smoking, but my dad was a smoker. So maybe that was an aha moment. So their secret code to me, if I ever got too excited or too exasperated, say, "Hey Arthur, have a cigarette." I'd say, "Oh, no, thank you." I do remember a lot of kids my age back then smoked. So I doubt any adult that heard the conversation thought anything of it. However, if any parents had ethical issues, I would say, well, their plan worked like a charm. So once again, it just shows go with the plan that works, period. Another good example, which I shared with friends many times, as I mentioned in my first presentation, I was asked to leave a convenience store at age 13 due to the fact that I looked suspicious. I remembered that's when Pop Rocks first came out. Oh, I really wanted them. So I spent 20 minutes looking intensely at every item, looking for my Pop Rocks. Couldn't find them. So, worse yet, I did not ask for help. So the clerk got suspicious and asked me to leave. Needless to say, I was crushed. However, when I later shared the story with my mom, she said, "Well, Arthur, you have to realize store clerks have important jobs to protect the store and be on the lookout for anything that looks suspicious. Because a lot of kids went in there to steal. Next time, do not take so long to look in the store. If you cannot find what you're looking for, ask for help." And about 3 years earlier, I was still in private school. I'd say I was 10 years old at the time. They had a staff member. I believe he was a college student. We became friends. He was very likable. He had this humor. One of his jobs was to serve lunch to us students during lunchtime. He had this humor. He always liked to pretend like he was eating their food. For example, he'd have a bowl of spaghetti. He'd scoop it out, put it right to his mouth. Within 2 inches of his mouth, he closed his mouth and put the spaghetti back in the bowl. Didn't even touch it. And I got such a big kick out of it. I was doing the same thing at our neighborhood supermarket Mom and I went to. Sure enough, I was doing the same thing with the meat items in the meat counter, food items in the store. I'd pick up the food. I literally did this. When I was within 2 inches of my mouth, I closed it and put the item back. Again, didn't even touch it. So you can imagine the store employees were not amused. In fact, I remember one of them saying to me, "You can go to jail for that." So I looked at my mom in confusion and she says, "Well, they don't know you're kidding," which gave me my first clue that what was funny to me may not be to others. Another good example I'd love to share was a lot of my autistic related repetitious behaviors annoyed others. I remember back in my sophomore year in high school, I had this good friend that used to come over to our house. In fact, Mom and I were really good friends with him. He came over many times, cooked for us because he was studying to be a chef. So during many of our visits, he mentioned an issue with a certain family member. So I remembered 2 weeks straight, every time I saw him at school, I'd say, "How's this certain family member treating you?" And finally, one day he said, "You ask me that every time," which caught me by surprise. So later that day, when I relayed the story to my mother, she said in a tactful way, "Well, he does have a point." So I learned it was a good idea to ask him different questions every time I saw him, which took care of the problem. However, I remembered a few years later at City College, I asked the same classmate the same question. We were ready to have a test. I said, "You ready for the test?" And finally, she got annoyed. So I learned from that point it was not a good idea to ask the same classmate the same question when we're having a test. And I loved humor. I remember when I was 11, 12, or 13, somewhere in that age range. I laughed at a joke, lines I heard from sitcoms or movies about 50 to 100 times. I'm not exaggerating when I said 50 to 100 times. Then I remembered when I was about 13, mom explained to me that something is funny to the average person about 3 times, then it is no longer funny. A valuable lesson for me is especially concerning social skills. And another one I want to bring up. When I played my favorite songs, I remembered when I was 7, 8, or 9, I played it over and over and over and over again. To the point where, at the time, I was oblivious to the point that it annoyed other people. In fact, today, both my mom and I remembered one of the kids' songs I played over and over and over again. And the words went like this: Hey, my name is Alice. I live in a palace. If neither one of us hear that song again, it would definitely be okay with us. Believe me. Learned how to behave appropriately in restaurants or in the car going out to eat. As I mentioned in my first presentation, my mom insisted that I look the server in the eye, speak clearly when ordering, otherwise, I may not get what I wanted. I must sit quietly or keep the noise level down where it did not disturb others and not wander around the restaurant. Her rule to me, as long as I can remember, loud noises and inappropriate behaviors were not acceptable, period. I do not remember this. However, my mom does when I was very young, when I had my screaming fit or meltdowns. She quietly picked me up and took me outside so we would not disturb other customers. As soon as I calmed down, she brought me back in. And when I was older, I remember her making it a point that I must respect the rights of other customers in restaurants or anywhere in public. And I remembered when I was about 12, I told a gross, disgusting, and inappropriate joke in a restaurant. I'll remember what the joke was, but it certainly was not appropriate around other people who were eating. I'll never forget the quote from my mom saying, "You can get kicked out for that." So I learned not to tell certain jokes in restaurants or around other people who are eating. I don't know if this happened or not, because I loved eating out so much. I remember making it a point to have appropriate behavior, because I always had that feeling if I misbehaved, she would have taken me out. Says, "Oh, we're leaving. You're not behaving." I don't know if it happened or not. Chances are that's exactly what she would have done. However, I remembered one night when I was about 7 years old, my parents were going to take me to McDonald's. It was on a Friday night. Maybe it was a treat or dinner. I remember what the circumstance was. I was so excited. I remembered our car pulled into that McDonald's parking lot. Oh, I could hardly wait. However, they started singing. Maybe I wasn't in the mood. I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I went, "Stop singing," in a very disrespectful manner. The next thing I knew, that car made a U turn, went off the parking lot, and we went straight home. We did not end up going to McDonald's after all. I remember started crying. They did not say a word to me. In fact, they did not have to because I knew why they did it. The fact I started crying, I think they realized that I understood what I did wrong. See, thankfully, they never had this feeling, oh, he has autism. He doesn't understand. Let him have it. Oh, no. Their point was Arthur needs to learn to be respectful. I look back and thinking, chances are it saved me from hurting somebody's feelings later on down the line. And inappropriate comments, behaviors at sporting events. I remembered when I was 8 years old at hockey games here in Fresno, I got overly excited and angry if the wrong team won or was ahead. A lot of times I'd get intense in the game and screamed incessantly. Mom remembered comments from other spectators. For the most part, they moved away from us so they wouldn't have to hear me. And I remember a couple of times my mother took me to areas of the arena where there are no spectators close to us, which was an easy solution to the problem. Still annoying, but at least I didn't annoy other spectators. I remember at baseball games, my mom does, and I remember this too. Other spectators are pointing me, go, look at that. Or they say, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? Fortunately, I learned to ignore them. My mother had just grated on her nerves. I look back and say, I'm so glad that she did not tell other spectators about my background with autism. For a few reasons. Number one, it was not well known like it is today. Two, I got the impression chances are they wouldn't have cared anyway. And number three, I don't believe it would have helped me. So it was more important for her that I learned to correct my behaviors, which drew unwanted attention or alleviate unwanted attention. So now I will go into etiquette when visiting another person's home. I remembered when I was 9 or 10, I got curious of what other people had in their homes. So I walked down a hallway, snooping around, looking at bathroom or peeked in bedrooms. And I remember one day mom says, you do not snoop around other person's home. So she redirected me to where everyone else was hanging out. I must have proper manners and be respectful when eating at another person's home. For example, if I did not like what I was served, best thing for me to do is keep my mouth shut and just do not eat it. Because I remembered I got in trouble a couple of times for making derogatory comments about the food I was served. And when it came to TV, mom's rule to me, I remember her saying, when you're at someone else's house or apartment, you watch what they watch. I do not want to hear you saying, I want to watch this show. And I knew it would have done me absolutely no good if I started screaming or crying or having a fit. Because mom would not have changed it. She would have said the others, like, you watch what you want. Because her message to me was not everybody was going to cater to me just because I had autism. And I felt that was a valuable message to me. And when I was about 7, in the apartment complex I lived in, I learned the hard way. I got kicked out of a friend's apartment for using profanity. It all started when other kids in the apartment complex tricked me into saying the SH word. And I got a big laugh over it. Mom couldn't get me to stop. So this friend of ours, Mom and I both knew her very well. In fact, she lived there with her sister and niece. So she was kind enough to invite me over for lunch one afternoon. It's the first time I said the SH word, the hostess said to me, watch your language, young man, or out you go. However, I did not listen. And when I said it the second time, I'll never forget her pointing the door, goes, out. I walked out crying. So I looked back and I said, I'm glad my mother did not go up to her and say, well, he has autism. Sometimes he doesn't know what he's doing. Nope. Her approach to me was, oh, you got to learn you cannot say certain words when you're in another person's home. So once again, it was important that I be respectful and use appropriate language when visiting others. Social etiquette when other people were having conversations. I was about 12 or 13. Mom took me out. We joined a lot of her friends that she worked with. They all knew about my background, and I bet they were all delighted that I was verbalizing, wanted to join in on the conversation. However, I learned the hard way, never interrupt a conversation. Mom taught me to wait for the opening, say, excuse me. But instead of saying it this way, excuse me, in the beginning I went like this, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, 10 times in a row rapidly. Mom and I look back now and laugh about it, but then it was not funny. And finally, I learned to say, excuse me, real calm manner. Then I had to learn to stick to the subject of the conversation. For example, when other people were talking about traveling, I would all of a sudden talk about something about school, absolutely nothing about what the others were talking about. Mom remembers the other people going, huh? What? What? In fact, I remember those comments too. So, after a little work and practice, I learned to stick with the subject of the conversation, a valuable social skill. Oh, another good one I've shared with many friends. Learning to say thank you for gifts, including holiday and birthday gifts, or gifts in general. I remembered at age 11, I went to my father's social club for Christmas, or a Christmas party. Well, my folks were split up at the time, so we were married, so I was with my stepmother at the time. We went in the room where people were handed out presents, gift wrap. I remember unwrapping mine. I didn't like what I got, and I said the exact word, this is a rotten gift. My stepmother says, you say thank you. Well, my dad heard about it. I'll never forget him going to me. He says, I heard what you did in there. You could have hurt someone's feelings very badly. So I was in tears because I felt bad. However, when my mother found out about it, she calmly explained to me why we say thank you for gifts. Plus, I remembered about a month before, Grandma and Grandpa were over at our apartment for Thanksgiving. And right before they left, Grandpa gave me a can of mixed nuts. Being nice. However, at the time, I don't think I was interested. I wanted something else. So I complained about them. So after that incident at the Christmas party, Mom said, well, Thanksgiving, you really hurt Grandpa's feelings when you complained about the nuts. And I'll tell you, at that moment, I felt about this small. A lot of guilt. However, I made it a point to say thank you from that point on. So I will share other ideas for public awareness. Some of the schools that I substituted at offered general ed students class credit to be peer tutors for special needs students, including autism. And I'll never forget this one young man. I believe he was high functioning autism. I thought it was great that he loved to interact with other people. However, he had this one quirk where he liked to fist bump everybody that he walked by, including the ones he did not know. So his peer tutor says, you cannot do that to everybody, especially the ones you do not know. In fact, I'm a firm believer of peer tutors. They made a difference in my life when I was still in private school. In fact, as I mentioned in my first presentation, my first year in public school, my fifth grade teacher assigned a tough classmate to watch over me. So, in many aspects, he was a peer tutor trying to teach me some social etiquette. I remember saying the wrong things. I remember him saying, "Arthur, be cool," tried to prevent me from getting in a sticky situation. So, once again, I'm a firm believer of peer tutors. And some of the schools I subbed at, they're very high functioning autism and other special needs. Plus, they went on outings and work sites. I remember, I'd say almost all the classroom, or most of them at least, had behavior charts scaled from 1 to 5. Any behaviors in the 1 to 2 category were considered appropriate. 3 were not illegal, however, drew unwanted attention. I look back and I would say mostly or all of my autistic related behaviors were in the 3 category. Not illegal, however, drew unwanted attention. 4, definitely inappropriate, in some cases illegal. Anything in the 5 category was against the law. I don't remember all the examples. However, I like the fact that those posters were posted in the classroom. I considered that messages to the students that certain behaviors could have consequences, especially out in public. In fact, I look back, my mom totally believed in consequences for my actions, especially if they were inappropriate. So, in review, I will mention that I love the idea of autism awareness to the general public. However, mom teaching me public awareness was one of the keys to my success, helped me reach the point of where I am today, helping me correct behaviors which drew unwanted attention. And toward the end, I mentioned schools having general ed students as peer tutors, teaching students with autism along with other special needs social etiquette or how to get along in public. I do believe that my mom is all for autism awareness to the general public. However, she believed it was much more important for me to learn public awareness, correct behaviors which drew unwanted attention or alleviate them to help me get along in society. So I want to thank everyone for watching the video. I have 2 favors to ask. If you liked what you heard, please click the like and the subscribe button. My next presentation will be about a man with autism, such as me, sharing his experiences on cruises. So I will see you then.